everyone. My name's Quina. You can call me Q if we haven't talked before. The only way you're going to get good at public speaking is if you speak. You know, it's really just like a very simple concept, right? So for my lunch and learn, we're going to be doing a little bit of exercises. So I just want to get a little gut check for the room, okay? First question. Who in here is terrified of public speaking? Anybody? You're just like,
I don't love it. I don't love it.
Okay. All right, good. Well, then this is going to be an amazing group to do this with. All right, word. All right, so everyone can do that. So one thing I want to debunk is that I thought about it when they put out the idea that I'd be doing a public speaking thing, is that, like, I'm not the person that can, like, cure your stage fright. Neither is, like, any, like, conversation like this going to be something where you're going to, like, go up there and be good. Because the simple fact of the matter is that no matter who you are and you go up in front of people, you will always be anxious. Like, you're always going to have some kind of fear because everything can go wrong. Like, I can, like, decide to do a lunch and learn and get, like, barbecue stains on my shirt, and now I have to be in front of you guys, you know? So all of these things can still happen, and then you have to, like, try to figure your way out of it. So I have 3 golden rules, right? Before I get into my golden rules, I'll just talk about who I am and then why I even, like, started talking, right? So when I was a kid, probably from when I was born to maybe about middle school, I was not very confident in who I was, right? Didn't really have strong self-esteem. I was bullied a lot when I was in elementary school. So since I was really isolated away from people, it got to a point where I just stopped talking, right? Just, it's called selective mutism. So my mom started to get really worried because she's like, okay, well, I can't do anything if I have a kid that doesn't talk. So she ended up sending me to this group. It was called New Jersey Orators, and she decided that this group is going to be the thing that's going to make me start talking. The only way for me to do that is for me to be in front of people. I absolutely hated it. It was the worst thing I ever did in my life because you go up in front of people and the people are staring at you, right? They're looking at you attentively. You know what I mean? Sometimes you don't get people to laugh whenever you say a joke, especially when you think it's funny when you wrote it down, and then you go in front of people and they look at you like you're insane, right? Or you have people who are on their phones, or babies start crying, and then things just go downhill. I was very terrible when I first started. It probably took me about 2 years or so, and then I got a little bit better. And the only reason I got better is because if you think about how some kids are trained for the Olympics, right? Where your parents, like, are, I don't know, is there a show where, like, kids start dancing? You know,
Dance moms?
Yeah, is it Dance Moms? Okay, cool. So I had, like, a public speaking mom. Right? So, like, that, what ended up, like, she for some reason thought that this was going to be my out into, like, the world. So, like, every time before, like, I finished my homework, I had to, like, recite poems or something to my mom until, like, 3 o'clock. And ultimately, it was one of the greatest things that she ever did. Because public speaking in and of itself is one of the most valuable assets I have ever had. And the reason why I say that is because your ability to speak to people is going to distinguish you from everyone else. Because one, there's 2 of the top phobias in the world. First one is death, and the second one is public speaking. People get terrified of that, right? So you overcoming that and you having that valuable asset, that ability to communicate with people, is going to completely take you away from everyone. Like my job interviews, I have plenty of jobs that I should not have gotten. But because I can talk, because I can talk to you, because I can have a really good conversation, they look at me and you're like, you know what? You talk a good game. This makes sense. You can be an astronaut, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. I started to realize how important this was. And then it also became the first time in my life where, like, because I was, like, bullied and things, it was the first time where I was in front of people and I could only hear me. Like, people would always come at me and tell me things, and I couldn't, I wasn't that quick with it when I was younger, so they would say things, I couldn't, talk about your shoes or something, and I'm just like, whatever, right? So, like, now that I've gotten to this point, I can stand in front of you, and I'm like, wait, no one's gonna say nothing? Yeah, I ain't got no jokes? Do you mean I'm gonna talk to you, and then that's it? Oh yeah, I'm doing this, right? So then that's when I ended up starting, like, really taking it seriously to a point where I was just like, this is the coolest thing ever. I still deal with, like, some kind of, like, anxieties when I talk one-on-one with people, because it's definitely a lot different, because you hear people's opinions back and forth. Here, like, what else are you going to do besides, like, hear the voice in the room? Another thing I would love to mention is that people tend to tell me that my voice carries, right? That it, goes different directions. There's a reason for that. So part of the training that I did was that, like, you'd go into, like, a school auditorium, right? And my instructor would stand outside of the auditorium door. And I would have to recite my speech on stage. And if he didn't hear every word that I said, I had to start over from the beginning, right? And that's just the process that I had to keep doing. So I get loud sometimes. I apologize, right? So that's just me in a nutshell, right? That's how public speaking kind of came into play. So my 3 golden rules, I technically have 4, but 3 sounds better, so. All right, my 3 golden rules. First and foremost, and this is like my #1 pet peeve when it comes to public speaking. Nobody knows that you messed up until you say you do, right? So if you go up on, if you go up in front of people and you start having a conversation with them and you say, oh, darn, I'm sorry, my bad. Just don't do it. Don't do it, because nobody ever knows, right? And this first rule ties into the second rule, right? My second rule is that you must understand the importance of having pauses in your sentences. Dramatic pauses could mean the difference between anything, right? And in those moments where you pause, that's that time that you can take to think to yourself like, damn, what was my next sentence? What was my next thought? What should I do to keep it, keep this going, right? So pausing is crucial to public speaking. There's no need to go up in front of people and just like start racing, right? Because more importantly, people aren't going to understand what you're saying. You're not going to be able to articulate your thoughts properly. And at the same time, you can't think about what you need to say. Especially if you're anxious and then you start like, going a mile a minute, then I stop. Like I've frozen in front of like thousands of people before. It's not exciting, right? You just stand there and you're like, I should never talk so fast. If I had just paused, I would have had more time to think about what my next thought would have been. So pausing. My third, the word right? I know you've been through them presentations where someone's like, yeah, and then you keep going, yeah, #1 thing, right? Because when it comes to like filler words have a way of leaving a bad impression for a few reasons. One, it doesn't seem like you understand the topic that you're talking about. So anytime that you talk about something and you have to say it makes it think that you have to think about something as opposed to it being innate and you understanding what the topic is about, right? And then 2, just doesn't sound good, especially when you do it repetitively. Because I don't know if you ever had like a college professor or something. That's like you can find people who would use words like or yeah or or those kind of things, right? So the way to solve that and basically all those things is to have those pauses. Whenever you feel like you want to say just pause. That's probably the golden rule that I would give to you guys, right? If you want to ever say that, pause, think about what you want to say first, and then, there's no need to rush. There's like no one's going to look at you crazy, because pauses in and of itself have dramatically changed my speeches. I can go to be talking about something, and just because I pause, people will, in the midst of my silence, people will be like, oh my God, and I'm not saying anything, I'm just like, and what is this? She's doing something, right? And then the whole time I'm up there, I'm like, shit, what is my next sentence? Oh, yes, and then you go on, right? And you go forward. So those are my 3 golden rules, right? So, obviously, the best way to start speaking is to speak, right? So, I'm part of a group right now. It's called Toastmasters. Anybody in the room ever heard of Toastmasters? Oh, sweet. Are you guys, anybody masters? No? Oh, you should be sorry. Okay. All right, so Toastmasters is a public speaking organization. It's basically geared towards people. They market it in an idea that, like, leaders will come together and learn how to communicate. You do speeches. And they also host something called the World Championship of Public Speaking, which I've been going for about 3 years, unsuccessfully. But I will keep trying. So, part of Toastmasters is that we have this activity. It's called Table Topics, right? Super simple. What ended up happening is I'll get a volunteer from the room. If you don't volunteer, I guess I'll just choose somebody. And you'll pick a number from 1 to 10. And then I'll just give you a topic. You have 1 minute. Talk, say whatever you want to say and just feel comfortable doing it. Because one of the things is that everyone in here is, all interested in trying to learn how to talk publicly. So that's the best way to try. So, does anyone in the room want to volunteer? Oh, awesome! Yes!
Okay. You.
I don't know.
Yes. Thank you very much.
How's it going?
All right, pleasure.
Yeah.
All right, so pick a number from 1 to 10.
Ooh, 7 is a magical number.
Ooh, 7. Okay. No, this is gonna be fun. Okay. As a child, did you have an imaginary friend? If so, what was their name, or did you have a favorite bear or toy?
So I don't recall having an imaginary friend, but bears and toys were my shit. So I really liked having. So I had 2 toys that I really loved. One of them was a stuffed bear, and his name was Bear. And then the other was a smaller frog, and I don't think I actually gendered Bubba, but that was Bubba and Bear. And apparently, I later learned this in life, that Bubba got lost on one of our international travels with me and my parents, and then was later replaced with a different Bubba. I still loved it the same. And also, if I have time to say, I did have a lot of Beanie Babies, and I would just kind of make a fort with them and sleep with them every night, and just kind of like have a little tea party without the tea or food.
Awesome. Oh, sweet. All right, cool. Sometimes people will come up here and they'll stare at you for like 35 seconds because they feel like a minute is that long. But I'm really happy that you're gonna be like, nah, wait, hold up. I know it's done. I still got a point to finish, right? That is awesome. That was nice. I want to speak to that heart racing, right?
Sure.
That right there is the greatest thing that you can have when you walk up there, right? You have to feel that way. Because I can tell you right now, if I ever walked up in front of people and felt like completely comfortable with what I was doing, I was gonna bomb every time. Like anytime I walked up there, I was like, you know what, I got this. I get up there and I'm like, holy, no I don't. Fear in any case, not even just public speaking, fear in and of itself is the most powerful component for you to be successful in doing something. The most powerful, right? Because you fear the embarrassment so much that you will do anything not to have it happen, you know? So that kind of like anxiousness, that's really important. All right, awesome. Thank you very much for being part of that table topics. Give everyone a round of applause. Well appreciated. All right, so there is food. So there's jerk chicken, barbecue chicken, red beans and rice with baked mac and cheese. So I mean, if you like it, I made it. If you didn't, then I bought it. All right? Sounds awesome.